Hello, and welcome back to the Everyday Tarot Podcast, your deep dive into the divine wisdom of the tarot. I'm your host, Camille A. Saunders, your hallowed high priestess, tarot reader, and professional witch, and today I'm talking about all things reversed and reversal cards. Whether you're a seasoned tarot reader or just starting to explore, this podcast offers insights, intuitive messages, and practical advice drawn from the cards. Each episode is designed to help you connect with your inner wisdom, find clarity in your decisions, and tap into the energy of the universe. Tune in every Monday to check out the latest episode. If you want to carry the magic with you, the Everyday Tarot merch collection is available. If you've ever found comfort in an episode, discovered a new perspective through a card pull, or felt seen by the community, this is a way to take a little of the magic with you wherever you go. Every purchase helps support the podcast and allows me to continue creating free tarot content, sharing card wisdom, and building a space where tarot is accessible, intuitive, and truly for everyone. Thanks so much for listening, sharing episodes, and leaving reviews and supporting this work in all the ways that you do. It means more to me than you know. So if you want to carry the magic of the podcast with you, the link will be in the show notes to check out different merch options. I have a white crop top with the logo on it. I also have a purple tank top. There's lots of neutrals and colors and sweatshirts and tanks and crops and all different kinds of things. So if you want to rep the podcast and out yourself to fellow witchy or tarot readers like I like to do, then go ahead and grab your merch now. If you want some other ways to support the podcast, you can join the Everyday Tarot family on Patreon. You'll get exclusive tarot content, like recently a tour of my home office. You'll get weekly exclusive additional card pulls for help navigating challenges in your week. You'll get to meet other listeners and our members only chat and get access to bonus resources like my tarot card crafting workshop and spreads I'm sharing, and a chance to help shape the future of the podcast. That's for kind of the first info where the biggest fans can kind of hang out, which is really fun. I'm also going to be percolating on another future offer that I would love to do with people. And so head on over there. You can always check out like the blog for the episode and watch the full video. But there's other goodies over there as well. So you can always listen, leave a review, and subscribe or follow in your favorite podcast app so that new listeners can help find the podcast. You can join my newsletter list, and if you do, you get my free Hallowed Tarot Spread workbook. You'll get up-to-date information, upcoming events, presentations, musings, and more. Or if you want to be a guest or know someone that you would love to see on the podcast, go ahead and fill out my guest inquiry form in the show notes below. And you can find any of these offers in the show notes or for free on Patreon, in addition to the images of the cards I pull for each episode. All right, so today's main discussion is a new one for me. I want to talk all things reversed or reversals, or do you read them? How do you read them? What are the options? What about different decks? Answering all this kind of questions. So I will be going through a couple of different things. I'll talk about my personal philosophy about reversal cards. I'll go through Biddy Tarots. They have a blog and a video about how to interpret reversed cards that I recently watched and read, and I like some of the options that they give. I'm going to talk about the Upside Down Tarot, How Reversals Add Depth to Your Reading by Joanne Bunning book, and dive into that a little bit. And then I'm also going to talk about the Sacred Tarot Unveiled book that I picked up in Portland somewhat recently. I don't have a good link for you to buy it. It is old. It was published in the 70s, I think. Okay, this one was in 1994, so not that old. Younger than me. But it's a very used copy. If you can see, it's actually the binding is like falling apart, so I could be pretty careful with it. But I really like some of the things that it has to offer in it. So I'll be talking about one of the ways that they talk about reversals as well. Yeah. Okay. So let's get into kind of like my personal philosophy first, because that's kind of the easiest to share. And then we'll go into like some options. So my personal philosophy is I generally read reversals and or it depends on the deck. So I have many decks, as you probably know. Half are maybe tarot, a lot are oracle. Generally for oracle, I don't really read reversals. I don't think oracle necessarily lends to it. I have some decks where I wouldn't really know how to interpret a reversal. Because, for example, I have a deck that has like plants on it, and I would just kind of be like, I don't know what opposite of a plant is, or like, for example. So again, we're going to talk about like some different ways to interpret reversals, and some of those might work for certain decks better than others, but generally I do read them when I'm reading kind of like a traditional tarot deck. I have some oracle decks that have horizontal and vertical cards. So again, that one feels challenging to me to even know if I pulled a reversal card, because if I pull a card and it's a horizontal card, but I pulled it vertically, it would be hard for me to decide what a reversal would be, for example. So that's in the Wild Kuan Yin Oracle deck. I have a numerology deck, again, kind of like don't necessarily know what like a reversal for a number would mean. Like I said, the plant or herbalism deck. In the Nordic Goddess Oracle deck, I'll grab it real quick. Norse Goddess, not Nordic. Rune Oracle. This one actually has built-in reversals. So I guess in runes they have kind of their own reversal names. And so this one has upright and reversal cards in it. So again, I wouldn't necessarily be taking one of the reversal cards and like reversing it because it's built in. This deck's beautiful. I'm just going to see real quick if I'm like totally right on that. I think so. Yeah, so they use, so Merkstov is the like reversal. Yeah, they say one card per rune plus one card per Merkstov rune, runes appearing in a reversed position. So, like I said, so for that one, I again, wouldn't really know exactly how to interpret that. Some decks I have reversal definitions in them. So for those personally, I would definitely read the reversals. I know in like the Sasser Vito Tarot deck, the Goddess of Love Tarot deck. I'm just looking at all my decks right now. I think in the Anima Mundi deck, there's reversals. Yeah, those are the main ones. So again, personally, I do read reversals. Now we'll get into like how. What do they mean? So again, personally, I like if I were to go to another tarot reader, I'm like, you do you. You cannot read reversals, or you can't. I feel like with folks I've interviewed on the podcast, there's a mix. Some people are like, yeah, I generally read them. Some people are like, no, I never do. Some people are, it depends, which is like me. But yeah, generally I'm like open to reversal cards. And again, like I try to just feel into, especially if I'm reading for someone else or if I'm not. Yeah. Sometimes I will flip them back upright if I think that's going to be a clearer message, I guess. So yeah, now let's get into like how do we read reversals? You choose to read them. Okay. You have a deck that maybe has reversal definitions or a deck that doesn't. So I think that one's harder. So like the Snag Tarot deck, the one I've been using a lot recently, where I show the images when I share my screen. There's no reversal definitions for those. And honestly, often when I read that deck, because the guide is online, I use it during the episodes because it's really nice because I can show the cards very easily on there and I can like split screen and show them, especially for clips and like in the podcast. But a lot of the times, if I'm using that deck, I'm away from my computer. I can pull it up on my phone because it's a virtual guide. Personally, it's like very long and in full color, so I wouldn't like choose to print it personally. It'd be like a book, or at least an expensive print. But so in that one, I don't even have the upright definitions with me with that one, and so I am going a lot more off of the imagery. So generally, and like this is what they speak about in the Sacred Tarot Unveiled, people will say that a reverse definition is like the opposite of what an upright means. And this one I will show you. But they actually put the card, so this is for the Magician, and then they have the reversal image. And on this one, they like choose to say that the reversal, that you should only look at like the top half of the card. So in here they say reading reverse cards the easy way. They say pull out all your major arcana cards. Make sure you know them face up. That's helpful. They say start with the Fool card, turn it upside down, which is considered reverse. Take your hand and cover the lower portion of the card that's furthest away from you. And what do you see? So for the Fool, right, you can go ahead and pull out your Fool card, turn it upside down, and cover, again, kind of like the bottom half of the card if it was upright, or like the part that's furthest away from you. It says, for the Fool, notice you see the sun, the wand, often with a wallet, the head, and the arms of the Fool. And again, if you don't have a Rider-Waite deck, that's okay. Just kind of take notice about what's in there. You might have similar symbols. By covering up the lower portion of the card, you can see that the Fool is separated from the ground and in the mountainous terrain. He is quite simply ungrounded in his thought patterns. He is ignorant as to where he is going and left up in the air with uncertainty. He could very well be said to be foolish. So again, reversed, it would be like ungrounded, foolish. You can try it with the Magician too. So what do you see first? You kind of see the person, you see their arm raised. Again, this is in the Rider-Waite traditional imagery. You see the upper torso of the body and the head. It says the arm upraised is facing you, the reader, and the wand hand and head is ungrounded again, only up in the air, and could lead to fruitless command. This card represents indecision, weak will, and inability to command the forces of nature. And then look at the next card. So the High Priestess, the next one, says she is knowledge. Turn her upside down, cover the lower portion of the card, and what do you see? The crown, which holds the full moon, is apt to fall off the head of the High Priestess since she is upside down. She represents that the truth will be absent from her mind, like the head is the crown. The veil between the pillars has the possibility of falling, which will bring ignorance upon her. The cross may become an object of a lesson for her to bear, since it is now the top of the card which is furthest away from you. The reversed card key then indicates that deception, self-absorption, shallow knowledge, and untruth, or kind of like a facade of half-truth, is what the card means. So you can continue to do this as you go throughout the cards. So this is kind of like one way. So if you look at like the sun, the moon, or the star cards, when you reverse them, often they all have those key like signifiers above the horizon line. So basically when you reverse them and you're looking at the top portion of the card, if it was upright, or the farthest part of the card away from you when it's reversed, in those images, usually they'll show the sun, and the moon in that like upper portion. And so again, that is helpful for you to just kind of notice when you look at other cards. It says if you look at strength reversed, you can see the crown of the woman's head is the first thing you see. Since the head is falling, might also fall away. She will lose her ability to control herself in the use or misuse of power. If you looked at the hanged man or hanged one, which is the 12th card, or number 12, notice that the cross which the man is hanging from is now facing you. And if you look at it, you'll see like the feet and the legs generally and the cross. So when the hanged man is kind of back on the earth, he's not hanging between heaven and earth anymore. The man has become grounded and has the ability to walk away from the suspension effort. He's learned some lessons in the effort of being in limbo through surrender. In the death scene of the card, which is the next one, so number 13, you see kind of like the top half of the knight or person. You see often like the flag, the skeleton being prominent. There's a white horse sometimes, which is about that moving presently. And just notice what else you see. Sometimes you can see the sun in between the pillars for death. So it says it'll be about decision and life. There's a silhouette of buildings against the sun. This indicates existence on the other side of the pillars, a continuation of life after death, or the ending, beginning again. And like I said, the star, moon, and sun in reverse, you can kind of see those like the imagery is in the top portion of the card. So that, again, this is kind of what the Sacred Tarot Unveiled book says. So I would say that's kind of the like traditional way of reading a reversal. If we're going to go by like Rider-Waite Smith cards and the symbology tradition, which is like you reverse the card, you might look at the top portion or kind of the overall image and think about like what does that signify? So I really like how Biddy Tarot on their website and in this video, and I'll link them both in the show notes about how to read reversals. They talk about, so like one of the ways they have 4 ways that they kind of talk about it. So one of them is the visual, like what does it look like reversed? What's the vibe you get from it? Again, like where upright, it might look like something in particular. When you flip it upside down, it might look like things are falling, or there's like blood dripping, or right, the hanged one is actually now they look like they're grounded. So go through your cards and you can look at that, in particular, like the major arcana ones, like I talked about, just kind of see if you understand like the visual symbology or symbolism that I talked about. So that's like one way. Some other ways to read reversals, right, is that idea of kind of like opposite, which is kind of wrapped up in that. Some other options are that they talk about on the Biddy Tarot, like blog and video, are that if it's reversed, maybe it's about kind of like the internal version of whatever the card means, or like yourself. So if upright, it's about maybe external forces or what you should be doing out in the world or with other people or in your work or this or that. That reversed, it's about something inside of you. So let's say, for example, so we have the 2 of Pentacles here. This is from the Snag Tarot. So when I look at it reversed, it actually looks very similar, right? It's often about like kind of like balance or imbalance. Pentacles are the earth sign. So I would say that like maybe if the upright definition was about balance on the earthly plane with finding like finances, balancing your bank account or your budget, for example, since Pentacles are the kind of like financial affiliation sign, then the reverse might be about, okay, what's something that's maybe like inside yourself that needs to be balanced? Where are you feeling untethered or maybe like stuck in a loop, right? This image also shows kind of like an infinity symbol in it. So here's the upright Two of Pentacles. So in the Sag Tarot, they say the traditional meaning, again, balance, adaptability, managing multiple priorities, juggling finances, competing demands. Okay, so they say their take on it, again, this is the upright, is it reflects the reality of balancing competing demands, points to financial pressure, time constraints, emotional labor. So, right, you're riding the fine line, like the juggling. It says, right, juggling is not a long-term solution. So if we think about this in reverse, so we can think about, okay, what does it actually look like upside down, right? Especially if I look at the top of the card. Well, now there's only one pentacle, right? Which in some ways is easier to juggle because it's only one thing. But also it's this loop that can kind of go around and around. Whereas when we have the two, you can see the kind of figure eight, like winding. Again, it's a little bit easier to like manage one item at a time. So if we think about the internal, so again, maybe if upright, it was about balancing competing demands or financial things, which again are much more external, emotional labor. Maybe it's about like, oh yeah, okay, maybe right now internally, I feel like I'm balancing my hunger, my like need to eat with my need to focus on work. Or I'm trying to come up with examples, but so thinking about maybe something internally feels like I'm juggling, right? Or feels pressure, anxiety. What else would be internal? Maybe you're having a hard time like the multiple priorities, like you don't know what to prioritize. It could be again like things maybe you internally want. How do I prioritize? Again, like then my need to rest and to chill out, with also my need to check some things off my list, etc. So, and then I'm going to stop sharing this so I can go back to my list here. So those are, right, we can look at the visual. What does it look like as reversed? We can look at the internal version itself. So two other kind of options, other than just the kind of like standard, like it's the opposite, are too much or too little of the thing. So I really like this one because this actually, I'll go into the Upside Down Tarot and kind of like their philosophy, which is this book. But this one actually gets a little bit more at that, which they have a very interesting kind of like philosophy on reversals that I had to really read the beginning of the book. I'd used it in some of our episodes before because it does have all the reversal definitions, which is nice. But it has kind of a slightly steep learning curve on like what it means. And so I really had to like study the beginning of it to prep for this episode to be like, oh, okay, I think I understand now. So the too much or too little, again, let's pull a different card so we can play. So I pulled Strength reverse, perfect. So if Strength upright is about, again, like, usually Strength upright is about internal strength. So here's the upright version, right? We have a person, we have this lion, often depicts a lion or a big cat or something kind of that indicates like external strength. But the traditional meaning is, as it says here, inner strength, courage, compassion, emotional resilience, facing challenges with patience and calm rather than force. So it could be softness, emotional honesty. Again, there's already kind of like an internal definition here. Points to the courage to remain open, to care deeply, persist without hardening yourself, like setting boundaries. Honors the kind of strength that's often overlooked, the strength it takes to feel, to heal, and to keep going. Again, not like physical strength, like you can lift things or you can run a marathon or you can birth a baby, all sort of like physical things, but also a lot of those things are also mental, right? Sometimes it's not just about what your physical body can do for you. It's also about how do you think about it? What are you telling yourself while you do it? So here, the upright card is about that, like emotional resilience. So this is a great example because it's like kind of confusing. So Okay, so yeah, if we look at the visual, what does it look like reverse? So if we just look at in this picture, the top portion of it and then turn it upside down, we just see the person. We don't see the lion anymore, at least in this image. So it gives a very different feel. It makes it just seem like, okay, you're just kind of like maybe like isolated, or you're kind of in that internal self. So that would be kind of the visual. And if we look at the whole card again, in this one, the lion's kind of like on top of the person, not in like a domineering way, but we just kind of see the faces. And so it just kind of seems like we don't really know what's going on. They look the person looks a little bit less in control of the situation, I would say. If we think about the internal version, the self. So again, this one's kind of hard because the upright's already internal. So if we think about what does it mean reverse to be the internal self? So maybe it's like you're questioning your inner strength. Maybe something lately externally has made you be like, oh, I can't keep up that routine or that habit anymore. Again, kind of perhaps like speaking negatively to self, or maybe you've been working on that, but it's still like a work in progress. And so when you look at this card in particular, upside down, right, we just see the person. We see like them and the moon actually. So maybe there's some like your inner fortitude or spirituality is helping you with this. So other options are the too much, too little. So for this one, I like this for the reversal because it helps us clarify a little bit. So again, if strength upright is about inner fortitude, too much or too little of that could be like ego, like you think too much of yourself, or you're kind of like maybe being selfish or pulling attention to you, whereas maybe it needs to be spread throughout other people. Or too little could be like maybe you're being really hard on yourself, right? You're like saying like, oh, I should be doing better, this or that, but we're not having that like trust in self, and that we can, that maybe this is a hard time mental health wise, or maybe that, something's making you question, or you made a mistake, or you feel like you failed something. So that too little would be like, okay, we're in our head, perhaps. We're looking at our internal version of self for this card, but we're not having like the fortitude aspect of it. We're only looking at the micro example. So again, that's the too much or too little. And then finally for this one, the other option is to say that this is a blockage. So again, if strength upright is about inner fortitude, then the blockage would be something, right, is blocking you from having those like boundaries with compassion. You're being hard on yourself. We're not being compassionate. You are only looking at the things that maybe you did wrong, or maybe again, someone else is actually like contributing to some of these inner thoughts. When I work with clients in therapy, I often, when we talk about our inner voice or that like self-talk that can sometimes be negative or harsh, I often point out that often that inner voice is actually something that someone else told you, like you heard it said before, and then you kind of took it on and repeat that to yourself, which we can understand why that happens, which is our body's trying to keep us safe, trying to keep us from doing that thing again, having that experience, having someone tell us that thing that was so hurtful or challenging or unhelpful. But often we take that on and then we don't even necessarily recognize that, oh, that's something someone said to me. Often a parent or someone close to you that really made an impact, often negatively. And then we kind of hold on to that message going on. So that would be kind of what I see about this card and with the reversal option. So again, could be like, look at the visual. You can choose to look at the whole card or the half portion, as they talk about in the Sacred Tarot Unveiled book. You can look at what's the internal version of the message, what is the too much or too little option, what is being blocked about this message. And then also sometimes you just like get a feel that like, okay, I know when I am reading cards for others, especially like people I know, like family or colleagues or friends. Often I'll pull a card and be like, oh, okay, I feel like this is about that thing we were talking about earlier. Like that in spending time together, in knowing them, like images or a conversation or something come to mind. So that would be like the kind of, right, we have to also, in my opinion, like be in touch with our intuition. And then finally, I want to talk about this other, I'm just looking at my time. Okay, we're good. This other kind of way to think about reversals. So this is from the Upside Down Tarot, How Reversals Add Depth to Your Reading by Joanne Bunning. And what I really like about this is that this is kind of like a reference guide. So they have each card in here. They have a very brief description of the upright, like 2-3 sentences. So like, for example, this one, the Page of Cups, they put it upside down. This is the upright definition. So super brief. And then they have all of this is in the reversal, which is not usually how tarot guidebooks or books are. Usually it's mostly about the upright and then maybe briefly about the reversal. So I'll talk about this method, and if you like it, you can find the book. I think someone bought this book for me, so thank you. I'm going to try to summarize it because they go into like a whole introduction about how they view reversals. They talk about reversals are energy. So they say, like, imagine that a finished puzzle, like a jigsaw puzzle, if you look at it one way, it's one single object presenting a whole picture, right? Because you can, when it's done or when you first get it, it's all together. And then if you look at it another way, it's a collection of many tiny objects, the pieces of the puzzle. So it's, right, it's both the conglomerate, the big picture, literally, and then the small pictures that are the puzzle. Then they say in here, imagine the pieces moving and changing. The overall dimension of the puzzle stays the same, but the picture doesn't. It's recreated anew in every movement. And they say, our universe is like the puzzle. It's a single entity, but made up of countless changing pieces. And these pieces they call energies. So they say every living being has energies, as do inanimate objects. So sort of their idea here is that every card in a tarot deck has a certain energy to it. It's not like the card itself necessarily has its energy as just a physical object, but there's like a larger archetypal energy that it symbolizes. If you've ever had different decks or held other decks or looked at them or looked at the same card in different decks, I would say you probably agree or know this, which is that the cards themselves can have energy to them, but also the Strength card has an energy to it. And sometimes those energies are different in different decks. So for me personally, like, I definitely believe that, and that a strength card in one deck might be different than a strength card in the other, and what it brings to the reading. I mean, to me, it's part of why having multiple decks is cool, or why I always bring the same decks to the same readings or to the same people or even to the same podcast episode. I try to stay open to the energy itself and like who or what cards, what deck wants to be present. So That's kind of how I view that. But as they say in here, so if the upright version of the card has like a certain energy about it, they say that the reversal represents this like energy on a line, and I'll put it up here. But basically this little graph down here, maybe I'll take a picture and put it on the screen, is like kind of like a bell curve. This one's not as dramatic, but basically it starts at kind of 0, it goes up to like 100, and then it goes back down to 0. And they're saying that generally that's how energy rises and falls over time, and that an upright card generally is in the middle. So like the highest energy, the rising energy, the strongest energy is upright. And that when we read a card reversed, we might be looking at different parts on that line. So it could be the beginning part where we're increasing the energy. It could be the ending part where we've decreased the energy. Or they say it could be absent. So basically we could be that like first dot at the beginning or the end that has like almost nothing left in it. So they call that absent. So, for example, in this book, they talk about for each card, the early phase, the late phase, and then like the absent phase of the energy. So if you were to do this method, they say we go through different steps. So first you talk about the card's energy, or get into the card's energy, what it means to you at the time of this reading. Because again, that can be different. It could be different for different people. If you're the one reading for yourself or others, you're going to take your current understanding of the card and use all the kind of techniques, the meanings, your reactions, your intuition, your response to the image. That's kind of like the energy at the beginning. So you're going to take that. Then they say step 2 is to take the context for the card's energy. Again, like how it relates to what's going on in your life. If you've asked a question, how does it reflect the question? Do you feel like it provides you with some kind of answer or kind of help you arrive there? If it's in a spread, how does the meaning of the position like fall impact the energy? So where it is in the spread. Step 3 is to look at the orientation of the card, if it's upright or reversed. That kind of tells you the strength of the card's energy. So they say if it's upright, the energy is present, developed, obvious, and active. And if reversed, the energy is absent, undeveloped, hidden, or inactive. Again, it's either kind of at the very beginning or very end of that curve that I showed you. And it says it's possible you may not agree with the energy level shown by a card, but the reading is suggesting to you its actual strength in the moment. And then they say, so if it is reversed, what is the energy's phase? And so that's where you're going to be trying to kind of pinpoint on that curve, where is it? Is it the energy is like not there at all? So that would be considered absent. It's in the early phase, so the energy is somewhat present, but you sense it will be stronger in the future, so it's going up. Or is it in the late phase, which is that the energy is somewhat present, but it's not as strong as it was in the past? Step 5, it says, is this energy new or repeating? Is it complete or incomplete? Assess whether or not you've experienced the energy before. If it's in the early phase, if it's brand new or familiar, part of a repeating pattern you recognize. If it's in the late phase, does it feel complete or incomplete to you? If the energy seems almost absent, become aware that the energy is indeed lowering, hovering around, even if it's not yet obvious in this experience. So again, you're trying to see, and I would say part of this is like a feeling. Some of this could be like, have you been pulling this card a lot recently? That'd be that kind of like energy repeating. Or Does this feel like a new message for you, or does it feel like something that is old and you're almost done with it? Step 6 is the card's energy part of a group? So is it like in a suit or type, major arcana, number card, or court card? Does the energy seem linked to certain other cards, and how is the energy impacted by those connections? And then finally, for step 7, it says what to do about the energy. Once you've decided upon your best understanding of a card's energy, you can decide what to do about it. You can encourage, discourage, or simply let the energy be. The choice is up to you. So we're going to do an example. And I'm probably just going to do one. And then if you like this idea, maybe try to research more about it, or perhaps get this book. Because I think it's kind of interesting. I'm going to be trying this out. I think it's going to require a lot of play or like practice. So they say, this is their example. It says, you decide to do a reading about a problem at work. This week, your manager told you she wants you to inform her daily about your progress on a certain project. You think this monitoring is a waste of time. You told her you'd rather inform her when necessary, but she still insists on a daily report. You do a reading to answer the following question. What do I need to understand about the disagreement I'm having with my boss? It says you draw the reversed Four of Pentacles in a spread position that indicates the key feature of the situation. So I'm going to go ahead and share, and we're going to look at, for us in the Snag Tarot, what is their Four of Pentacles. We're going to be looking at it upright because I can't flip. I guess we need it, but okay, so here's our Four of Pentacles. I'm going to talk about it in this idea too. So it says, what is the card's energy? 3 traditional meanings for the upright Four of Pentacles are possessiveness, control, and blocked change. So often when you look at the image, they're holding on to something. Sometimes I think in the right one, they're like holding all of the pentacles like close to their chest, but they kind of look like they're about to like fall out. Right here it says control, security, holding on tightly to resources, ask you to examine your relationship with security. So in the past, this card, so we're going back into our example, has often meant control to you. You see the figure is trying to hold down the coins. They seem to be saying, you're not going anywhere without my permission, so you settle on the control meaning for now. Okay. Now, we're going to go on to step 2. What's the context for the card's energy? So the situation consists of all aspects of your interaction with your boss, both internal and external. Your question narrows the focus down to what you need to know to better understand the disagreement. The position meaning suggests control is a key feature. So it says, what's the card's orientation? The card's reversed, so you know its energy is relatively weak, right? So it's not at the peak, which it would be if it was an upright card in this understanding. It's not fully developed as of yet. So they're saying, what's the energy phase, right? It says you rule out late phase because your manager's request is new, right? This is a new thing that's happening at work. And you're trying to understand like kind of what's going on. So it says early phase seems best, but you wonder why the card is reversed. To you, control is a strong and obvious aspect of the situation, and yet the reading suggests that this energy is low. Are you perhaps misreading the request as a control issue? On the other hand, the control energy may get worse in the future, right? Because again, if the upright definition, when it's at its like highest power of the Four of Pentacles is control, then we're a little confused, right? About, okay, if it's reverse, it's not at the peak. So where are we? So step 5, is this a repeating energy? It says you have to acknowledge that this scenario feels very familiar. You know that you tend to get angry and defensive at any hint of control. Are you setting yourself up for another round of changes or charges and counter charges? Okay, so they're saying in this example, right, it feels familiar. Maybe not with their boss, but with other people or other situations, maybe another job before. And so step 6 is this card's energy part of a group. You look at the other Pentacles cards and their locations. Is the Four of Pentacles in a special position group? Right, it's in the Pentacles suit. Can you intuitively link this card with any others? How do these connections enhance or downplay, the importance of control as reflected in your card's energy? So you could think about that. And then, so if we look here, so the 4 is kind of this control. The 3 is collaboration, teamwork, working together. And the 5 is kind of like exclusion, struggle. So the 4 is kind of like we're tightly holding on to something. Perhaps we're like afraid of this situation, right? Being pushed out, maybe being like fired or having things taken away from you. So finally, we want to think about step 7. What do I want to do about the energy? So in this example, it says you still feel there's an element of control in the situation, but you're also willing to now consider the possibility that it may be pretty low. You decide to talk to your manager calmly to find out what their goals are. Then maybe you can work out an arrangement that will work for both of you. It says your review of the Four of Pentacles led to an unexpected insight. You realize that you may have introduced the control energy into this matter yourself, perhaps because of past experiences. If control does turn out to be a growing feature of the situation, you now have a deeper awareness of the dynamics involved. So that's a very in-depth example about how one might use this approach. And it does say, like, right, I think this would take practice. This approach is analytical, but only at first. As you practice with it for a time, your interpretation will become more profound and integrated. In the end, you have a trustworthy method for tapping into the wisdom of your inner guide. It says these steps can offer a way to discover the meaning of a card's energy, the benefit of a strategy that it helps you avoid floundering during interpretation. You have a way to approach each card that leaves you with a useful understanding. The disadvantage is that the strategy tempts you to abandon your intuition to rely on a root system. You don't want your interpretation to become automatic. So again, we have to think about that curve as like fluid, and then this is one of our tools in interpreting reversals. All right, well, we're going long today, so I'm gonna end the discussion here. So that's a lot of talk about reversals. I'll put the Upside Down Tarot, what am I trying to say? The Upside Down Tarot link in the show notes. I also have found a blog where they do a review of the book. So if you just want to kind of like learn more and hear someone else talk about it, that might be helpful. I'll link the Biddy Tarot How to Read Reverse Cards blog and video if you like that method. And then I'll link the Sacred Tarot Unveiled kind of discussion that I found. The books, it seems like because the book is older and out of print, that I was only finding really expensive copies online. But I bought mine for like $20, maybe. I don't even think that. When I was in Portland. And it is definitely written and it's like not a very pristine copy, but it has very cool charts in it that really map out like where all the cards fit together. So maybe I'll explore this book more in the future. It's very Christian, I would say. And by that, I mostly just mean like they use a lot of Bible quotes, verses to explain the cards. And some of the stuff is like kind of strange, but I like parts of what they share. And it is like a workbook style, so that's cool. All right, let's go ahead and pull a card. I'm going to use the Snag Tarot, and hopefully we'll get a reversal, you know, then we can practice. If I don't get a reversal, it's going to be funny. We shall see. So, what do the cards have to say today? What else do we need to know? Maybe about reversals or the situation or our reading of them. All right, great. And well, the Seven of Cups reverse. Seven of Cups. So it's kind of I would say it's kind of like the Wheel of Fortune card. You can see here there's 7 cups depicted, and they all have something different in them. Some have like a snake, some have a poison mushroom, some have a diamond, one has a dragon, different things. It says, so the upright meaning is illusion, fantasy, being overwhelmed by options. And they say their take is it reflects a moment when there are too many possibilities and not all of them are real or grounded. It can be easy to get caught up in what could be without checking what is actually possible or right for you. This card asks you to slow down and get clear what is real and what is wishful thinking. So when I think about the reverse for this card and kind of the questions that I asked, I feel like it's saying there's all these ways to read reversal cards, or even, right, like one of the options could be to not read them, and that it's telling us that basically that there's not one way to do it, I would say, but that there's many ways. And that also means that if you use your intuition with your knowledge of some of the ways to read reversal cards, that you will figure it out with practice. That it's not that we're going to just like spin the wheel of fortune, or that we're going to drink from one of the 7 cups and that we don't know what we're going to get. I would say that reading reversals is actually a bit more like what the card looks like upright, which is like you can kind of see the options, and there might be one that you drift towards or that seems more interesting or alluring, and that you don't have to worry about all of them. That's kind of what my intuitive check for this for our example here is. We could think about, right, maybe internally we feel confused or like, oh man, now I know what to do even less about reversals. But, right, I would say this is a very like, it's okay. Now we have a lot of options. Now you have a lot of potential, and that we just get to kind of figure out what it looks like for ourselves. If we did the too much or too little, right, we could say there's too many options or too little options, and that either way we're a little confused, right? That could be the too much of or too little reversal. It could mean that we're being blocked about the optionality, or just maybe being blocked about reversals in general. I would say, I think when I was first learning tarot, I had one deck and it had reversals in it. But I'm like, you can also choose not to read reversals, especially if you're new to tarot. You can if you want, but of course, I'm kind of the opinion that, like, if you're using your intuition, then if your intuition or what you're choosing to is to not read them, then the cards will reflect the messages that you need upright. Okay. Or we could look at the visual, right? So what does it look like in reverse? So when the cups are upside down, it looks like things are falling out. If we were to cover the top portion of the card when it was reversed, we wouldn't see these ones. We would only see the 4 below, which doesn't super change the method or like the methodology, I would say, but it does make it a little less daunting, perhaps. And so maybe it's really that there's 3 things we don't need to worry about. Yeah. Okay. Well, hopefully that was helpful. I'm gonna stop sharing so I can see you. For joining to talk about reversal cards. I would love to know, do you read reversals? How do you read them? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Anything like that. The deck I used today was the Snag Tarot deck by Bree and art by Sophie. The link in the show notes. And that is our collective reading for the week. I will be heading over to Patreon right now to draw a clarifying card specifically for any blockages or how to overcome them this week. If you want to see that exact card and what it means for your energy, click the Patreon link below and join us for the rest of the reading. You can either become a Patreon member and you'll get to see the readings every week, or usually I put up the option where you can just purchase for a couple dollars this week's reading if you're just really dying to know more this week, or you want to, if something from this episode called out to you and you want more. So I will see you next Monday. You'll get guest episodes about once a month. Every episode goes out is recorded on video, and those go out on Spotify and YouTube, or you can check them out over on Patreon. Those will be going up on Apple Podcasts. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest, you can fill out my form. Links for the decks will always be in the show notes and on Patreon if you want to look at them or purchase them. And thanks for joining me today on Everyday Tarot. I will see you next time. Bye.